individuals were completely have done away with their culture, with their language, with their ethnic characteristics. Then we have the separated individuals, and then we have the marginalized individuals. I told you I was going to make it a little more funny too. Now, this is what? It's called, this is another term that's called symbolic ethnicity, συμβολική εθνικότητα. Δηλαδή, θυμάσαι ότι είσαι Έλληνας μόνο όταν έχει ελληνική παράδοση. Usually that happens to the third generation. Third generation, you know, it could happen to the second generation. But usually, according to the research, you know, κάποιος είναι Irish, maybe 1/2, or maybe 1/4. In that day, he wears his green tie, you know, και πάει στην παρέλαση του, πώς το λένε, St. Patrick's. So, this is ethnicity that is individualistic in nature, but without real social cost. Δηλαδή, όποτε αποφασίσεις να είσαι Έλληνας, γίνεσαι Έλληνας. Και πας στο πανηγύρι, τρως γύρω, χορεύεις και μετά ξεχνιέσαι. Μετά από ένα χρόνο πάλι αποφασίσεις ότι είσαι Έλληνας. Ξέρετε ορισμένους που είναι έτσι? Υπάρχουν ορισμένοι. Ειδικά αυτό είναι με την τρίτη γενιά. Και αυτό το χαρακτηριστικό δεν το βρίσκουμε μόνο στην ελληνική παροικία. Το βρίσκουμε και σε άλλες. Έτσι, για να είμαστε δίκαιοι, διότι η έρευνα αυτή δεν γίνεται, έπρεπε να κάνουμε έρευνα και σε άλλες παροικίες, να δούμε πώς συμπεριφέρονται. Their attitudes, their behaviors. So, I had to select 6 domains. I had to select 6 domains to do the research. The first domain, of course, has to do with the Greek language, which, you know, we all think that is very important, right? Do we?
Yeah.
Bravo. The second one is the Greek Church, the Greek Orthodox Church. I think most of you, maybe all of you, belong to some kind of a community. And the third one is the family, cultural orientation, and values. I mean, we do have values. One of the things that's very strong in the Greek family is that we do have strong values. The fourth one is the cultural activities and organization membership. How many of you belong to an organization? What is this here? But it could be a HEPA, it could be the Society of Pondion, Society of Φιλόπτωχο, Κυπρίων, right, brother Άρχον? Έτσι. Είσαι στην Κυπριακή Ομοσπονδία.
Και πήγαμε και μαζί στην Κωνσταντινούπολη, right?
Και στην Κωνσταντινούπολη πήγαμε μαζί. Το άλλο είναι continuing contact with Greece. I was the fifth, and last but not least, a political activity. You know, for how many years we run around for the Cyprus issue, for the Υπηρωτικό, for the Aegean issue, for you name it. Μακεδονικό, Ποντιακό, the genocide, you know, Asia Minor. Don't you think this is a sign that you're involved? The Jews are involved much more than the Greeks.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So I selected these 6 because I thought that they were very prominent, and I was going to do my research on those 6 domains. So, and here's what the characteristic, we have the first generation here, and the first generation, you know, they have mostly, if you ask them what are you, they're going to say mostly, they're going to say, I'm Greek. And then the second generation, mostly, they're going to say Greek American. And the third generation, they're going to say mostly, I am an American, maybe of Greek descent, you know, but because the third and beyond, because, first of all, the third and beyond generation, they might not be 100% Greek. It might be 1/2, or it might even be 1/3. I don't know what the percentages are. So, this is my methodology. I had to do a methodology, right? Professor? Okay. So, here. So, I got permission from the Metropolitan because I figured the best way to do it is to go through to the different communities. It was much easier. Παρά να βγω στους δρόμους και να ρωτάω είσαι Έλληνας, είσαι Έλληνας. Let's go, you know. Oops. And then I contacted a lot of priests. I said, look, please help me. I have the Evangelos permission, you know, this and that. Then the majority of the questionnaires were gathered with the researcher. Personally, yeah, I got into my car και πήγαινα σε έναν πλανόδιος πολιτής από επαρχία σε επαρχία. So I covered the northern part of the diocese, or the metropolis as we call it these days, which is Tenafly, which is St. John's, the theologian, all the way down to Virginia, in Norfolk. Of course, I didn't go there. I knew the priest there, Archimandriti Bowers, so I sent him the questionnaires and he was kind enough to gather about 30. So I had a good sample from 10 communities, which covered the whole geographic, you know, because there can be differences. Like you can come to our church in St. John Piscataway, St. George in Piscataway, and we have the liturgy, you can hear half Greek, half English. All the psalmodias, 90% are in Greek. But then you go 30 miles down the road, or 20 or 10 miles down the road to Trenton, and it's a different thing. All English. Maybe the Psalti might, you know, Sali, Stalinika. But the priest, no sir. You understand? So I had to cover, for my sample, to have some validity, it had to be from different geographic areas. So it wasn't that simple. So the participants filled out the information and returned the questionnaires during the coffee gathering. Yes, after the gathering, I would start here and say, please, attention, my name is Panos, please fill out these, you know, so many people would do that. I wouldn't let them go, because once they go, forget it. You never get those back. So I would stay there. So I did this for a whole year. I was going around gathering, you know, the material that I had to use. I gave out about 1,000 questionnaires in order to get about 230 valid to use for the research. Now, so I had a lot of diagrams, but I didn't want to kill you with the diagram. So, but this is some of the quantitative approach that I use, you know, with statistics, which is the descriptive, categorical, frequencies, inferential. I think maybe Lazaro understands that because he's a professor of economics. So, but these are statistical research that I had to do. And then we see some of the demographics. As you see here, the second generation was most from my sample, 55%. How many of you here are second generation? That means you were born here. Okay, which makes sense, because still it's pretty much a first generation organization. It was founded, this society was founded by first generation Greeks, and that's why the majority here. But if you go to the different churches, what do you think most of the parishioners would be there? Would be first generation? No, sir. Second. Yeah. So, most of my sample, when you ask them, they would say, 76% would say I'm a Greek American, as opposed to American or Greek. Higher education. We saw that there was 77% at least had a bachelor's degree. And 66%, they made over $50,000. Professionals, 71%, which is pretty high. And suburban, 77%. as opposed to, you know, living in a big city. So this is, I just wanted this slide just to show you some of how some of my diagrams look, the statistical diagrams. That's why I included this in here. And this is some of the statistical terms that I'm using. But I'm not going to go into that because I'm going to lose my story. Now, I believe we are, I had said that even before I finished this dissertation, that the Greek language is going to be lost. And, you know, a couple of times, people from the audience, they don't do that anymore. I'm talking about 10, 15 years ago, would yell at me. And you know, I'm very much in touch with the Greek language. You know, I came here when I was almost 16. And I think when I go to Greece, they don't know that I come. I don't even say one English word. That's how much in touch, that's how much affinity I have for the Greek language. But, you know, I am pragmatic. I'm a pragmatic person. And I had to tell them, look, the Greek language is going to lose, but at least if we can maintain the Greek synthesis. What's the word synthesis? I'm trying to find it.
Conscience.
Conscious, but you know, the Greek word has more power. Identity. I would take the identity more. Identity is more like tautotica, something like this. But synthesis, you know, so I said, if we can maintain that, that would be a big win, you know? So, but let's see, why are we losing the Greek language? Well, first of all, in everywhere you go, they're not encouraging to be bilingual or trilingual in this country. In other countries, they do. Right? You agree with that? They don't. Then, but unofficially, you do see that there's bilingualism in this country. Do you see that? Yes or no? Have you ever called the government agency and you hear español prima el número dos, right? So unofficially, the Spanish language is the second official language, unofficially. So if one of our kids really wants to spend time to learn a second language, do you think they're going to put more emphasis into learning Greek or Spanish?
Spanish.
Thank you. The other thing.
But the learning of the Greek is a given for our kids.
You think so? We'll discuss it. We'll see what the findings show. That's what I thought too, that it was a given. So another thing is increasing rate of intermarriage, which could be an answer to what this young lady said. What happens when you have an intermarriage? Do you think the person who is not Greek is going to go out of his way or her way? I mean, he's an exception to the rule. This man here. He's an exception. Let's give him a nice round of applause. Well, how many do you know that resemble him? Very few. Yeah, very few. Okay.
She knows Greek.
She really does.
Fine. But you are an exception. I know, and I admire you for that. And there's nothing wrong. I'm not saying that these people, there's something wrong with them, or they're not doing the right thing, or they're not doing the ethical thing. Why should they go out of the way? Why? There has to be a good reason. We have to sell it to them. And that's what we're going to talk about. Yeah, when you go to the suburbs, you know, I was living in Soria, right? I lived there for 22 years of my life. But you know, 75% of the time, 80% of the time, maybe even more, except when we're going to school, we would talk in what language? In Greek. Well, what happens when you go to the suburbs? you are among other ethnicities, and the common language is English. So then your children, unless you beat them up every day, they're going to talk English. And I find this with my children. That's why we're trying to go every year to Greece, and it's costing me a bundle of money in order to maintain the language to the extent that we can. Even then we're having tremendous problems. Now, there's a highly linguistic. Now, nobody has shown this. I think I'm the first one that researched into this. There is a degree of closeness between languages. The highest degree is 3. The lowest degree is 1. So the closest language to English is Afrikaans, which is a dialect from Dutch, Norwegian, and Swedish. Guess what? In every one of those countries, people speak English almost as good as they speak their own language, because it's very easy for them. These are Germanic languages.
Yeah, it comes from
In
the
Greece,
same
I
root.
mean, in English is mostly Germanic. Of course, then it was Latinized, it was Hellenized in many ways, but originally it's a Germanic language. Greek is 1.75, so it's not very close. So from the linguistic point of view, it's not so easy for someone who's born here to learn Greek. You understand? So that's a factor too. Maybe it's not a major factor like the others, but still it remains to be a factor. And another thing, in most of the schools, they teach them, and Elaine, you can attest to that, and I've seen from my school, my wife is the director of the Sunday school, they teach them the language, but they don't try to instill into them what is Hellenism, why they have to learn the language. And many times kids resent it. My second son, she said, I don't want to go, years ago, I don't want to go to Greek school. I said, the door is there. You're on your own. He was 8 years old, and he looked at me as if I were nuts. I said, the door is there. Go out, make a living, you know. So, all right. From my research, this was one of the strongest core values, the church. Now, of course, yes, the limitation is that, you know, my research was done within the perimeters of the church, right? But the majority of the participants agree that it's important for people of Greek ancestry, and that were 77%, to attend the services, and they actually attended in their behavior 60%. In other words, their attitude is 77%, but their behavior is 60%. It's close. And then, 94% of the respondents of every generation, first, second, third, and beyond, believe that they had good or very good understanding of the Orthodox faith. Here I have to present my argument with that from my own experience. I understand, somebody understands what the wedding is, the Greek wedding, you know, the Saria, what the baptism is, you know, το βάζεις το παιδί μέσα στο. But it doesn't mean that you understand the sacraments. Because many times on a personal level, I have asked people, what do you think about the sacrament of confession, of this sacrament? They really didn't know much. So I have my doubts about this. This is very high. Okay, so we have the assimilation here. We have the intermarriage. The younger generation that, where's the younger generation here? They have an agenda of their own. The conflict that exists, still exists to some extent between first generation Greeks and second and third. There's differences there. How to handle different situations. It's not as it's not as bad as it used to be when I was growing up. Because then, the first generation Greeks were younger, they were more aggressive, they were more, you know, it's my way or the highway, so there was a big conflict between first and second generation Greeks. In this case, in this one, family values, there were more similarities that were shared by the first and second generation, while the third and beyond generation deviated from the first and second generation. You know, the second generation is closer to the first as far as tradition, even language, even going to church, being involved. But you see that it is a big deviation when you're going to the third generation. So, does the father has the final say? Do they give more freedom to the sons or the daughter? From the old schools, you could probably say yes. Well, that's not the case. The attitudes. My children should have college education. Yeah, almost everybody said yes. So they were pretty much consistent with that. People of Greek descent should marry people of Greek descent. My children should marry someone who is a member of the Greek Orthodox Church. Not really. You know, because yes, you do have probably the majority of the first generation, but we put all the three generations, the second and the third generation, at a difference of opinion. Now, these are the attitudes, okay? The behavior. The behavior is in my family, we do honor and celebrate Greek heritage. First generation, 92% agree. Second, 92%. A third or beyond, 81%. It's still pretty high. Still pretty high. I'm in frequent contact with family members who do not live in my home. First generation, 94%. Second generation, pretty close to the first, but look at the third. It dropped to 78%. So you see the deviating. This domain, agricultural activity. Yeah, feel sense of pride. Of course, most of the people who have a little bit of Greek blood in them, they feel a sense of pride. That's a given. Feel a strong bond with other Greeks, 88%. Support Greek heritage event, 86%. Actively participate. Greek newspaper programs, they listen to Greek music, they eat Greek food. They dance Greek dance, frequently, sometimes. So there was a lot of consistency there. Study Greek history. Overall, this core value was maintained throughout the first, second, third, and beyond generations. Continuing contact with Greek, that's another domain. First or second generation, more than 90%, third or beyond, about 80%. So as you see, the third or beyond generation drops substantially as far as contact with Greece. You know, because how many people in the third generation you see that they can't wait to go to Greece? I don't know, too many. I don't know, too many, really. So the numbers don't lie.
But it's so expensive for a family to go.
It is. That also a factor, but if you're first generation,
Oh, yeah.
or second, you overcome that. But when you go to the third generation, I don't think so.
I think also having a family there who is close in recollecting the first and second generation, as you get further removed, you become strangers.
That is very true as well. That's also another factor. Organizational members. I'm a member of one or more Greek athletic or outside the Greek Orthodox Church. First generation, 69%. Second and third, they drop. Most frequently, from the organization is the AHEPA, which makes sense. It was founded, George, 1922, to support Greek American charities, causes. Remains the largest secular organization. We know that. Political activity. Look, Greeks living in the United States should try to influence American foreign policy towards Greece. Look, the third generation, it drops. American citizens of Greek descent should vote for political candidates who also are of Greek descent. 70% first generation, 39%, and only 24%. Now, if it was a Jewish organization, I don't know, I haven't done the, I don't have numbers to show you. Well, what do you think? I don't know if it would be 100%.
Much different.
But I think it would be higher. And I do, because of my business, 90% of my business associates, and probably 30% of my very good clients, or 50%, are Jewish. Well, I think I know a little bit about Jews, right? I'm a member of an organization that promotes a strong relationship between Greece or Cyprus and the United States. 50%, first generation, that's most of us in here. 31% second, and only 10% of third or beyond. Don't shoot the messenger. This is not bad. But what is your level of confidence for the leadership of the Greek American community? The majority is negative. Do you agree with that? What's the leadership? I don't know. Do we have strong leaders? We probably have very successful people, but I think we're lacking leadership. And then, from all this, I came up with 4 patterns. Not I came up, the statistics show 4 patterns. Okay, first pattern has to do with the Greek language domain, which demonstrated clearly the steady diminishing of its core value. First generation, then it diminishes to second, then it goes way down on the third. So continuously, there's a diminishing in retention of the Greek language. That's very clear in this pattern. And then you're going to the Greek Orthodox Church. It remains solid. So you see, first, second, and third generation there in one box. When they're in one box, that means they're consistent. Of course, the fact is that most of these were from within the church. So, okay, it makes sense. The family cultural organization, as I said before, the second generation is closer to the first. The family values, they're closer. But then with the third generation is on its own. And the political organization and membership, you see the first generation is all by itself. And then the second and the third or beyond, they're scattered. They're all over the place. And of course, one of the issues, it's not a negative thing. It's natural that it's going to happen. It happens with every ethnicity, especially when it goes to the second and third and beyond generation, is the intermarriage, which is going probably about 80% now. 80%. So what do? Do we have programs and curricula for children of intermarried couples? I don't think so. So don't you think that's something that maybe we can think about doing? Specifically for those children? Because I know some couples, and because their children are not fluent enough in Greek, they don't send them to Greek school because they think they're going to be intimidated and they're not happy there. Do you think that maybe we can have special classes for those children that come for, you know, for intermarriage.
Well,
Do
I
you think that might make sense?
I think Corona it is, for years now, they've had Greek school, Greek lessons for children of Greek parents and Greek lessons for people, for children of intermarriage faiths.
Well, that's
I
good
mean,
for them. Well, don't you think it should be more universal?
Oh, yeah.
It should be the policy.
The church should do that.
Yeah, yeah, because right now, here in the United States, I mean, they have the upper hand. It's gonna come from the church, it has to come from the church. So, what is the future of Hellenism as a social, political, and religious entity? Of course, the Greek Orthodox Church is gonna play the primary role. There's no question about that. That's the way it has been, and more than likely, that's the way it will be. So, on one hand, it's going to play the primary role. On the other hand, it has a tremendous responsibility. The multiculturalism, which is, it's a positive sign. You know, because now you see a lot of multiculturalism. You have a lot of Indians here. You see, before, they were here. Emerging power. The Koreans in the state, I'm talking about the state of New Jersey. The diversity that you see is just incredible. So all these ethnicities, I'm not afraid to project what they stand for, their language, their customs, their culture. And they're pretty vocal and loud about it, without any fear.
One of the things that struck me about the inauguration was there was a poet who spoke, and he said good morning in many different languages, namaste, buenos dias, and reflecting all of the recent trends in terms of the Southeast Asian migration. And he went pretty much across the spectrum of the ethnicities in the States, just saying good morning as part of his home. Quite powerful.
That's a very good point, but I just want to let you know that the demographic change that has occurred in the United States the last 40 to 50 years is unprecedented. It's unprecedented. There's never been such a demographic change in any other part of the world as it has been in this country. You know, back in the 60s, 85% of the population, 85% of the population was Caucasian white. That's not the case today. And that's not the case 25 years from now, 30 years from now. And I'm not saying, again, I'm not saying it's something negative. It's evolution, excellency. So, what can we do? First of all, the church has to step up, has to do more. I think we agree in that, right? Yes?
Yes.
We agree in that. Multiculturalism is good because it gives us more freedom to express ourselves without being afraid that we're going to lose our jobs or anything like that, or they're not going to hire us. As a matter of fact, I teach in an academic setting in a university, and the course that I teach is management, leadership of management. And one of the things is the diversity at work, at the workplace. Like, you have to show diversity because we are in a world of globalization, business, everything else. So, especially in this country. Then, we have issues of mutual concern and political involvement. What do you think keeps the Jews together? I'm using the Jews because they're it's a model ethnic group like we are. What keeps them together? One of the things. Besides that, do you think it could be the Holocaust? Is that an issue for them that keeps them together? Whether they come from Russia, or Germany, or Iran, or Egypt, or Syria. You know, the Jews are all over the place. So that's an issue of mutual concern. Just like there was, and maybe is an issue of mutual concern from the 70s, which is what? What was an issue of mutual concern that brought us together for a while?
Invasion of Cyprus.
Αγαπητέ μου Κύπροι, τι ήτανε?
Yeah, the partition of Cyprus.
It was the invasion of Cyprus in 1974. And all of a sudden, Greeks, they decided that, well, you know something? We have to get involved into politics. We have to become legitimate citizens in this country. We have to, oh, by the way, I have to become a citizen so I can vote. All of a sudden, many thousands of Greeks woke up. So do you think that makes sense? Issues of mutual concern and political involvement. Chairs of Hellenic Studies. I was talking before, Costa Puise. We're talking about Rutgers, right? That we have to make it a permanent chair, because right now it's not. So the more chairs we have of Hellenic Studies, the more we're going to keep that Hellenic spirit alive. And I'm not talking from an ethnic point of view. When I say Hellenism, I look at it as a cosmotheoria. Something that involves most, I would say, the civilized nations. Because it was the Greco-Roman culture and education that played a prominent role in the formation of Western civilization and beyond. From that point of view. So chairs of Hellenic and classical Greek civilization history, something that many of us are missing big time. And if we're missing it, our children are going to miss it too. So if you can emanate this, the history of Hellenism to the young children, I don't care if they are from a mixed marriage or not, don't you think that it might arouse their curiosity to look further? And don't you think so? That you might be able to do that? You might them feel more proud for what they are, even if they are half Greek or 1/3 or 1/4. So we have multiculturalism. We spoke about it. The Census Bureau projects that the share of ethnic and racial minorities will reach 54% of the total population by 2004. Basically, that's what I said before. 2042, the Caucasian population is going to be a minority. Now, do you think that's going to have effect in the so-called Greek American community? I don't know if it's going to be called Greek American community at the time. We can discuss it. Because then, I don't know if I'm going to be around, but if I'm going to be in here and I'm going to be speaking probably 3rd and 4th generation, there's going to be brown, there's going to be brown Greeks, there's going to be yellow and white Greeks, there's going to be, you know what I'm saying? Think about it. It's going to follow the trend of multiculturalism at large. In our church, we have children that half Greek, half Asian, half Greek, half black, half Greek, half something else, besides the other, ethnicities. I'm talking different races too, as well. So what is the impact of Greek American? Basically what I just told you. It will, that multiculturalism effect, it will have an effect on the Greek American community as well. Δεν είμαστε θωρακισμένοι σε κάτι τέτοιο. Είμαι σίγουρος ότι και αυτή η στάση και η τάση θα εισβάλλει και στη δική μας την κοινωνία, στη δική μας. Γενικά στην κοινωνία. Δεν είναι δική μας. So congruent with the efforts of the Greek Americans to conserve the ethnic culture, so increasing intermarriage may create new ethnic groups, which are going to be called what? Multi-ethnics. Generate a change and reinforce elements of Greek American identity, which is, let me go back, which is good. Multiculturalism makes you more free. But also other ethnic groups are going to feel the same way. However, the need for maintaining one's culture and identity may significantly diminish at one point. Now that still multiculturalism hasn't really kicked in, it has. But it's not obvious enough. But at one point, when you have in the audience right in front of me, where you're half Greek and half Hispanic and half Asian, I don't know how eager you're going to be to go to the Greek parade or to be involved with the organizing of the Greek parade as you are now. You know what I'm saying? Think about it for a second. You might have that element of symbolic ethnicity, which I covered before, and symbolic ethnicity is to remember μια φορά το χρόνο ότι είσαι Έλληνας.
This is very discouraging.
It's not. You see, if you know, there's in business, you know what they say? If you don't have a plan, you plan to fail. So I told you from the beginning, don't shoot the messenger. I'm not here to discourage you. I'm here to encourage you to do something about it.
Like what?
Like what do you recommend?
That's what I'm saying. Listen, wake up for a second. So what's the conclusion? We, as Greek Americans, we integrated. Okay? In other words, we came into the American system, but let me go back. Let me go back, because some of you might not get. Let's go back here. The Greek Orthodox Church may play a role, because these are what I'm offering. That's what I'm saying. The multiculturalism will play a role. We need prominent Greek American leaders and executives to come and talk to the community, to the Greek American community, especially to the churches. We need those figures, prominent figures, to come and inspire us and make us feel to be proud that we are 100% or 50% or 25% Greek, or whatever we are.
But
We don't have that much happening. We don't. And I'll give you an example. Like the other day I was watching TV, and the chairman of the Republican National Committee, the RNC, Pribus,
He's Greek, right?
he's half Greek from his
oh,
mother.
he is?
Yes. Yes.
And he's
Well,
a
who would know from his name? And there's a lot of examples. On the other hand, you can see someone that has a Greek name and he has absolutely nothing in common with it, or he's not in touch with the Greek American community, doesn't know a Greek word, just has a name. But there's other people who might have a different name, whether it be Hispanic or Anglo-Saxon or Germanic, and they feel more Greek and they might probably speak Greek as well. So we need these people to come and talk, who have a leadership position, either in business, in politics, in academia, to come and speak to us, to inspire us. That hasn't happened. You know, we need someone like Dr. Vangelis, who was Costa. He was the president of what? A big pharmaceutical company like Merck.
Yeah.
But we
Just
have
give you an
another
example.
one. We have another one. Dow Chemical. Liveris,
Exactly.
who was born in Australia.
Absolutely.
His grandfather went to Australia. He has kept the name, both the first and the last name.
Right.
And he really is one of the really big guys in
Dow.
sort of, no, well, Dow he's the CEO, but
but how does
he
this
really
help us?
is.
And the president of the new president of Walt Disney, right? Malogridis.
you keep saying the church, you know, but one of my daughters married outside the church. How are they going to reach them? How is the church going to reach her?
Well, that's what we're talking about.
That's right.
That's what we're talking. Now, the thing is that that's where a responsibility, a lot of responsibility falls upon the Hellenic part of the marriage. A lot of responsibility. And I can't tell, I don't know exactly how your daughter treated her marriage, whether she was diligent enough to convince the other party, look, it would be nice to be involved in the community as well. We'll be involved with your community, but let's be involved with our community as well. It's something, these are the things. I don't have the answers to all these things. I wish I did. I just did the research, and I'm just giving you, I'm giving you the findings. And that's why I'm saying maybe if we care enough, maybe we can sit down and discuss it and see what would be the proper measures to take. That's what I'm proposing here. I'm just giving some of my own proposals. But there's people who are much smarter and much more prominent than I am, who maybe can sit down and put their brains together and come up with some really good formulas. So that's another thing that I was quick not to cover before, which I think is very, very important. We have a lot of successful Greek Americans, a lot. All over, in academia, in business, forget it. I mean, we have so many.
Why we don't see them in church? Why we don't see them get involved?
That's, now, Scalise is alla prima, it's something that, do they have to come to church? Suppose they don't want to come to church. Does it mean that, you see, that's another thing we have to discuss. Does someone have to be 100% Greek to be, in order to be 100% Greek, he also has to be involved in the church?
But where else can they go?
What?
That's what has to be
Let's
done.
discuss it. You want to open up a forum of discussion? Yeah, I mean, find it, show here. That is the church. But the church has to step up. The church has to think about it. But what is the church? What is the role of the church? Is it spiritual or secular? Or both?
Is there a conflict between church and Hellenic?
That's a good question. Is there conflict?
Some.
You see, there's some erotisis.
Yes, that's interesting.
But this reliance on the church is very, very difficult, because churches in general are losing attendance, not just here in this country,
Everywhere.
around the world. And Europe, forget it. Europe has almost the easiest real estate to buy these days in Europe are churches, because they're dying. And the United States is following. The Greek church is doing relatively well here, but only relatively well. Other churches are diminishing faster. But our turn is going to come. People don't want to go to church for whatever reason. They're agnostics, they're whatever. So if Hellenism is going to rely on the church, it's going to rely on something that doesn't have a future. At best, they can maintain what they have, probably not. So we better find another way another vehicle, another venue to keep Hellenism going besides the church.
Okay.
The core of Hellenism today is the church. We have a religious representation, but we don't have political representation.
That's a good point.
So we have to move to that direction also.
That's a good point. Anything else?
Do you think there is a stigma being a Greek? A lot of people don't want to say, I'm a Greek. You get some people talking about a Greek. He's a Greek, he's American Greek, and a Greek.
And the third
And there is a stigma against being Greek, and I think we have to find out what the stigma is and try to eliminate it, get it out of the way. I give you an example, like my grandkids, we tell them to go to Greek school, right? And he says, Papu, we don't learn anything. Θέλω ένα μήλο, they learn some things, γιαγιά μου, μου είπε. And we're not teaching them right. Otherwise, we invented the word.
History comes.
We invented the word alphabet. And if you ask any kids in the Greek schools we have, they don't know that if you know the alphabet, you can read anything in Greek. They teach them the wrong things. We don't have the proper education. Yeah.
That's one of the proposals. These are proposals that I put here after doing that.
Although I have a younger son, he didn't want to go to Greek school. Every summer he went to Spain to learn Spanish. Okay? So you wind up because
Wait, stop. What did I say before?
Yeah.
You took your kids to.
What did I say before?
They had a choice.
It's not that I'm a
They had a
prophet.
choice that they
Research shows. I'm not a prophet. Please, continue.
Oh, because I told them, you're going to learn a second language, that has to be Spanish, the second language. You have to learn your motherland language, Greek. But it wound up to help him a lot learn Spanish because right now he's a director of Merck Pharmaceuticals because he speaks Spanish. We have to give value to the being Greek. I don't know if you remember way back when I was in the HEBA, there used to be a Supreme Court judge in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Like when he retired, he made it his job to go around and lecture to different clubs. He would speak for an hour.
That's what we need.
In English,
Yeah.
without using one single English word. And I think that we should give more emphasis, I think, the church, the schools, or whatever, that Greek is the most popular language in the world because it's used in medicine, in science, in anything. And we are not giving the kids to understand how valuable it is. And come back to my younger son, when he went to University of Pennsylvania, a month later he called me and he says, thank you. I said, for what? For naming me Socrates. I said, why? Because I got free membership into all the clubs.
So you get the benefits too.
But he, being Greek, it was a plus for him, and we don't stress that to our kids, to our families nowadays.
Exactly. That's why we have this over here.
Yeah.
That we really have to make it more meaningful for them. Anybody wants to add anything?
Well, my first experience with Greece was when I was in university. And I took an architecture course, and we also studied the classics in English as part of our study. So I think a lot of university students who come in with English 101, they go to the foundation of a lot of literature, which comes from the classical Greek. So I, for one, was introduced in that manner, and then I picked up on, and just seeing the American Revolution was adopted the Greek style to get away from the Georgian English architecture, and they took the classical Greek as the embodiment of democracy. So, the university level is where a lot of people are introduced to the true meaning of what it means to be a Greek when they can comprehend it on an adult level. So that's one aspect. Certainly, you have to look at the developmental. We have venues like the Greek church, or we used to have a Greek school, where you can cultivate it in dialogue and debate and family conversation and whatnot, reinforced outside the house. So there are many ways. It's a lifelong learning experience. And in essence, that's...
Somebody has brought this issue before, and the problem we have with the Greek schools here in the churches that we do, we're not using the modern methods to teach our kids the Greek. For instance, in our church, we used to have a problem of the director would say, you are 16 years old, you go in this class. You are 12 years, you go to this class. And when I was the president, I had to fight with them all the time. How can you put a kid that comes from second generation parents and children, the only thing they know to say Kalimera and Kalispera, and put them in the same class with a kid that just came from Greece. So the teacher will call the other kid stupid because he doesn't speak Greek. What kind of Greek are you? And I said, why don't you take these kids, no matter what age, put them in by performance in different classes. And this is a big, serious problem today all over the United States with the church Greek school we have, you know. We don't push on performance, we just put on any other methods. There is no program otherwise. There is not a universal program. How to educate our kids.
And you have to make it fun. You have to make it fun. Because a lot of times in some of the churches, at least in ours, it's like some of the teachers, the old traditional way, you know, and again, you know, very structured, and you have to make it fun. It's a second language, so you have to attract them. You have to make them want it. You have to make it fun. With my daughter, I playfully got her into dancing, playfully got her into language. You have to play around with her, make her want it. She's more Greek than I am. She loves Greece. She loves to go to Greece. But we have to play with the kids. I see a lot of parents don't participate. They go to a dance. Go kids, dance. I'm like, get in there with your kid. Dance. Open up. Talk to them in Greek. Participate with activities. Participate with whatever it takes to make them want it. That's my opinion. You have to get involved with them. It's not that you just send them to school and learn it. Make it fun when they come home. Say, okay, what's the word that we have today? The Greek word we're going to play around with. Make sentences with it. You have to make it playful in a young age until they get into it and they want it, rather than the structure of school. You go in there, you say, make it a little more fun, make it a little more exciting for them to want it. It's a lot of work, but I think that's the one way you can keep them in there. That's the one way you keep them in there.
With my own grandkids and all, and my kids, I find out that my other two kids, they speak very good Greek and all. And the Ionian village, Kaltobelat, they went twice to the Ionian village, they came back speaking, my grandkids, they go to Cyprus and they say, Bapu, you know, all the kids, they want to try to, they want to learn English from us, instead of teach us Greek. So, but going exposing them to Greece or Cyprus or whatever is a very good education for them.
Absolutely, but again, I will, forgive me for that, I will come back to the Jews, who will pay a lot of the young Jewish American kids to go to Israel for free and spend 2 or 3 weeks there. And they do that consistently. You see, that's another thing. Sometimes we'll do something, or the Greek government does something. Well, that's a mess there. I'm not going to go even there. I'm not going to go there. But at least if we here do things consistently, then it becomes part of the process, and it is to be expected. You see, and that's what will make the difference. Consistency will make the difference. All these things, all these are valid points, are very valid points.
You were right, you were right when you say take them there to Greece. I worked at Ionia Village. I was the director of the Greek department, and the kids will come in there and have such a negative attitude about Greece. And we were out one day, and we saw like an older lady had this pan, you know, προς το πάνω στο φούρνο να ψήσουμε το φαΐ, κρατούσε το κεφάλι της έντας σκεπασμένο, and all the kids are like, oh my God, αυτό δεν είναι καλό, δεν είναι υγιεινό. And I'm like, relax, back off and just enjoy for what it is. I said, this is where your grandparents came from. This is how they lived. Just enjoy what you see right now. And when they see it, eventually we're communicating with them and talking to them and make them understand this is who they are. Don't place them to where you are. Accept them for what they are and where they stand. And then work with that. And then eventually you saw the negative attitude just vanished away. They were like, you know, you're right. And I said, think about it. What you have in the States, people like that work very hard in the States to give you what you have. To give you the home, to give you the Mercedes, the BMW, whatever you have. You know, these are the people that make, but when they see it and they leave it and they have somebody to help them explain it, then it starts clicking in that, hey, yeah, you know, we're not, you know, we have to accept it where they are. We have to be with it. We have to understand it. We have to understand it.
Somebody said before that these are discouraging. They're not discouraging. these are findings that, you know, life is challenging. Η ζωή μας φέρνει συνέχεια προκλήσεις. Που έχει αδίμονο, εάν καθίσουμε και λέμε, δεν μπορούμε να ζήσουμε με προκλήσεις και προβλήματα. You know, it's maintaining your identity, your συνείδηση, or whatever you want to call it. It's a challenge, especially when you live in a great country that gives you the opportunity. As I told you before, the demographic change that has taken place in this country hasn't taken place in any country. Η δημογραφική αυτή αλλαγή δεν έχει πάρει μέρος πουθενά άλλου στην ιστορία του κόσμου. Ποτέ, μα ποτέ. Από τη μια άποψη δείχνει το μεγαλείο αυτή της χώρας. Να μπορεί να απορροφά, αλλά και την άλλη δεν σου απαγορεύει, ειδικά τώρα. Τότε, πριν μερικά χρόνια, υπήρχε, όπως λέμε στην εμπορική γλώσσα, the glass ceiling. You know what I'm saying. Those of you that work in corporations, you understand the glass ceiling is when you reach a point, especially women and minorities, who have the talent and we have the qualifications to become the president or the CEO, they don't go any higher. The same thing happened with the ethnicities. At one point, there was a glass ceiling for them. They couldn't go any higher. That doesn't happen anymore. Because we see in positions of power, for God's sakes, we have an African-American president. Hello?
Yeah. We're here to stay.
You know what I'm saying? Look around you.
That doesn't say much.
It says everything. It says everything what this country is all about.
However, and actually Urania was complaining about that, of course, is that really going to the third and fourth and fifth generation, which of course we are going, you're saying, you already said it, forget about Greek. And certainly the church is not going to help. In fact,
I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
No, you
The
didn't
church.
say that.
I didn't say the church. Don't get the words out of my mouth.
No,
I didn't say that the
no,
church is not going to help.
I did not say that you said it.
Okay.
I said
you're
that.
saying, okay.
That the church, certainly the leadership of the church has decided really that there is no way that we are going to keep all these people coming to the church without really recognizing that the knowledge of Greek will plummet. Okay, and unfortunately we have already some signs like priests who don't speak good Greek. Okay,
Or they speak no Greek.
Absolutely horrible.
Yeah.
Well, I was very kind. And the unfortunate thing, even though, I'm not religious very much, on the other hand, I recognize that the Greek church during the Turkish occupation for 4 centuries, 5 centuries in some areas, really played a major role in keeping the language alive. And that is great, but it will no longer happen, I think. Especially because we are in the United States, it is a melting pot, and really, let's all speak English, okay?
But at that time it was a
But
challenge.
multiculturalism is
It was a
different
challenge
than
for us to
melting
prepare
pot.
for you. Today is freedom, and you choose to go or not. But I think, of what listening to you, you have a good point on everything, but the only alive center or place that we can learn Greek is the church. Because every church has a Greek school. We just have to establish a better education system. And I don't know if there is a national board of education that can set the way we teach the kids the Greek language.
No, it's the Greek Archdiocese. That's there. The board of the educational department is there.
Yeah, but I'm surprised they don't introduce some Greek history to learn about the philosophers, about all the sciences came from Greece to teach them some what it means to be a Greek. We are not teaching them. That means εγώ θέλω και εσύ έχεις, that's not Greek.
It's elementary school.
Yeah.
It's elementary school.
Following what Kostas introduced, there is a fundamental conflict between the church and the spirit of the church and the classical Greeks. I mean, the leader of the classical Greeks, in some way, the big teacher was Socrates, and wanted to investigate anything. Anything was under his mental kind of activity to maybe negate what you want to say. The church has a different philosophy. There's a given facts of life you got to follow. Now, what Kostas said, indeed, I strongly believe that the church maintained the Greek language during the Turkish occupation. But the language the church maintained there, it was for its own purpose. In order to maintain the Christianity, they had
So it was a matter of survival.
It was the Bible, the basis on which. But now in the United States, the church does not deem to maintain that. So there is no reason for the church, for its own survival, to push the Greek language, or the classics particularly. Now, that's a mistake for my part, because the Greek language is the fundamental basis in which the Western civilization is kind of built upon. Besides that, still, when they want to translate the Bible, they translate it from the Greek, the New Testament. And the Old Testament has been kind of translated to Greek in the year 280 BC. Yeah, yeah, exactly. The 72, the translation 72. And even now they use it because all the previous the documents, most of the documents, they were lost. So, but the Greek translation is there intact. So we have, as Greeks in this society, a big advantage to pursue some kind of, as you said, and I agree totally with you, to give the kids the pride that they have ancestors which provided the foundations of the Western civilization. By the way, I just, a couple of years ago, I got a book from Greece that somebody spent a lot of years to collect all the Greek words in the English dictionary. And by the way, they counted, and they will find 25% of the English words in the is in our Greek words. And finally, I'm going to say that most of the kids that are taking tests for the universities in the part of language, almost half of the words being used are Greek, and the big majority, of course, Latin. So we have a tremendous advantage.
You sound like my Greek fat wedding.
One question, on your studies that you made, did you ever find out how many students from the United States, Greek American, go to study at the universities in Greece?
No, that wasn't part of my study. But I will tell you what...
I think that will help tremendously how we perpetuate the language here.
I don't know if there is a need for study for that, because, you know, we know that it might be a handful, if any, you know, that would go. It would be the other way around. It would be how many students from Greece come to the United States. I don't think it's worth to do a study like this, because the sample... The sample is going to be almost non-existent, Lazar. You know what I'm saying?
What I'm saying, the number is very low. But if there is more,
it's going to be almost
very small number.
It's going to be almost non-existent.
But if more students from here study there, they come back.
Statistical research on that.
if they go and study there and come back, they will bring new blood, new energy to the Greek language. Yeah?
Wes.
Well, I would say that, for instance, I know a couple of friends of mine who were students who studied archaeology, and they went to study programs in their schools to Crete and various parts of Greece to study to actually visit the sites. The American Farm School,
Right.
it has a program called Greek Summer, where they take students from American high schools, usually from their community, but they're broadening their base. And they take high school kids, 30 or 32 a year, whatever it is, on recommendation. They have to apply to the program. And they go up to a village somewhere and work on a construction project. Either they pour concrete or whatever it is that they do in a rural village. And they'll take 10 days and travel throughout Greece as part of this. And they'll go through a metamorphosis, which is part of the program, where they come in and they're building team skills at the same time under the context of what it's like to live as a guest in Greece. So for them,
Well, these are specific cases where they have to go to Greece because it's part of their curriculum.
well,
Right.
no, the American Farm School is an outreach program. It's really not tied into an academic program in which you apply to this. Whereas the students who have an archaeological program or something, they will go to Greece and study. So it's not really necessarily that they're going to full university there, but it will be as part of
Part of their curriculum, okay. All right, any more comments on this? So here is some of my thoughts on the findings, and I went back to this slide because I didn't emphasize enough this particular one. Ότι χρειαζόμαστε ανθρώπους οι οποίοι είναι επιτυχημένοι στη ζωή, επιτυχημένοι στον επιχειρηματικό τομέα ή στον ακαδημαϊκό τομέα ή στον κοινωνικό τομέα, οι οποίοι θα μπορέσουν να εμπνεύσουν, να κάνουν ομιλίες στις διάφορες κοινότητες, στην ελληνική παροικία και να εμπνεύσουν τα παιδιά της δεύτερης, τρίτης και της τέταρτης γενιάς και να τους πούνε, και ξέρετε, η επιτυχία, success is contagious. You know, people are being attracted to success, and especially to successful people. They want to be around them, they want to be with them, they want to listen to them, they want to interact with them.
Who's going to get them together?
Well, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it.
Maybe we get them to pay for we have
You see,
shares.
so far, so many of you came out and you gave so many very good, we're brainstorming here. I know this is a very intelligent group. I've been in this group before. I know many of you. And I knew that you were, this is the first time that I'm making this presentation. You know, I mean, I was in Greece, I made this presentation, and before, you know, I didn't exactly, before my dissertation was completed, I made this. So somebody said, you know, Pano, you are the evangelist of Hellenism. I said, είμαι ο πλανόδιος τελάλης του ελληνισμού. Όχι ακριβώς ο ευαγγελιστής του ελληνισμού, ο πλανόδιος τελάλης. But we need more people to do this. You know, we need more people who are more prominent and better than me, more affluent, more successful, more famous. Not that I'm not famous enough, but more famous, right?
Who is in a better position to do that than the church?
It's a position. He's taking a position. And that's where the debate starts. He says, you know, that the church, and I have the church over here. I don't think I excluded the church. It's in the top, right? Yes?
But it's not the whole.
But the question is,
We don't see it.
will the church do it?
No.
Will the church do it to the point that Hellenism will survive with a different, με διαφορετική μορφή. Ίσως με το χάσιμο της γλώσσας, αλλά όχι με το χάσιμο της συνείδησης.
Even in the church, the problem that I have is that...
Let me tell you something, since you're bringing up the subject. The priests can play a major role in that.
But will they?
Yeah.
Say that again?
But will they? I don't think they're willing to do that.
It's not to their.
It's not to their advantage.
You know, I tell a lot of priests about,
But you see, will they do it from the theological point of view? You see, that's where sometimes I go to churches and I speak about the history of church. And I speak about what Orthodoxy is, and about Asia Minor, and about the fathers of the church. And people look at me like this, you know, because I can cover this subject. I'm well read on this subject to speak about it. And people say, how come the priest doesn't say? I said, look, if you have to learn the Hellenic, I said, are you religious? How many of you are religious in here? Nobody?
We only build churches,
Κώστα, μην το γράψει αυτό. By the way, Κώστα είναι από τον Εθνικό Κήρυκα. Give him a nice round of applause. Because he made the trip. He made the trip because he knows that you're a very special group, and that's why. And of course, the subject too. But you know, let me go back to that. Let's say if you were religious, hypothetically, you would want to know, and when the population that I speak to, they're in the church when they invite me to do these kind of lectures. So I tell them, even to the ones who are not Greek or who don't speak Greek, I said, look, if you really want to understand the Orthodox religion, I think it would be nice to learn the basic Greek. You know that the Jews, they're not going to get bar mitzvah if at least they don't go and they study and they know the basic Hebrew words. You know that. I don't have to tell you that. So I use this εγχείρημα, αν θέλετε. Επιχείρημα, μάλλον, όχι εγχείρημα, επιχείρημα. This argument to convince them that it would be to your benefit to learn basic Greek because it's part of the religion. You know, when Christianity was Hellenized and Hellenism was Christianized, there was a union. If it wasn't for Hellenism, we wouldn't be Christians. Hello? Anybody knows that?
everybody knows that.
If it wasn't for the power of the Greek language, there wouldn't be Christianity. I don't care if you're called Roman Catholic, Protestant, Baptist, Orthodox, or whatever.
If it wasn't
So it was the power of the Greek language that managed to do that. And they used it as the greatest tool ever invented. So from that point of view, do you think it would be nice to hear the Greek language? Fortunately for my sample, and of course most of them come from, all of them, I would say 90% of them come from the church. They were for the Greek language to be spoken. Not 100%, but they were, the majority were for the Greek language to continue to exist. Yes?
You're absolutely right. The Greek language is the one that spread Christianity. But the Greek classical spirit is entirely different. And it's in conflict in many respects with Christianity. The ancient Greeks said, question everything. That's the foundation of the ancient Greek civilization. Gain knowledge.
You know,
and then you have a church that said, believe and don't question anything. So how do you expect?
That's another lecture.
But you expect the church to propagate the Greek civilization?
That's another lecture. Usually I cover that, but in a nice diplomatic way when I speak about τους τρεις ιεράρχες. Τα γράμματα και τρεις ιεράρχες. I cover this in a more diplomatic way, because of course my audience in front of the bishops, you know, and I have to be careful what I'm saying. But in the truth of the matter is the beginning when Hellenism met Christianity, it was like μετοπιαία σύγκρουση.
Of course. But it still exists, it's ignored.
Μετοπιαία σύγκρουση. Και υπάρχει μια λέξη που νομίζω ένας ιστορικός και φιλόλογος, ο Χατζηδάκης, χρησιμοποίησε, που λέγεται μισγάγια, η οποία είναι μια ομηρική λέξη. Και he's describing, περιγράφει πως ο ελληνισμός και ο χριστιανισμός είναι δύο χήμαροι που κατεβαίνουν με μεγάλη ταχύτητα και σε κάποιο σημείο συγκρούονται και που ένας πέφτει πάνω, τέχνει το ένα και σιγά σιγά κατεβαίνουν από το βουνό και σιγά σιγά γίνονται κατάλαβες, αλλά στην αρχή το χρησιμοποιεί αυτό ο Χατζηδάκης, ο οποίος είναι πολύ γνωστός ελληνιστής κτλ. Ότι στην αρχή η σύγκρουση μεταξύ του ελληνισμού και του χριστιανισμού είναι δηλαδή άνευ προηγουμένου, είναι φοβερή. Και χρησιμοποιεί αυτή τη λέξη νησγάγια, η οποία είναι ομηρική λέξη και λέει, ας πούμε, περιγράφει τους δύο χήμαρους που έρχονται σε επαφή και μετά κατεβαίνουν ωραία και αρμονικά και σαν ένα κινούμενο ριάκι, αν θέλετε.
Οι τρεις ιεράρχες τους συμφιλιώσανε κατά κάποιο.
Και οι τρεις ιεράρχες φυσικά διαλέξανε αυτά που ήταν σε εναρμονία με τις διδαχές του χριστιανισμού, χρησιμοποιήσανε αυτές τις διδαχές, οι νεοπλατωνιστές που λέμε, και τα υπόλοιπα αυτά θα τα πούμε στην άλλη.
Και σπουδάσανε στην Αθήνα, θεολογία.
Άλλοι στην Αθήνα, άλλοι στην Αλεξάνδρεια. Ναι, κύριε.
Let me just remind everybody what a Hellenic cultural society is and why it was formed. It's an organization that really recognized the fact that to be a Greek American in this country, you didn't have to be strictly a Greek Orthodox Christian, but you can be Greek and be of any ethnicity, of any background, because we're not saying that Greeks are only the ones that they were born or raised in Greece, but there are many, many other Greeks that they have taken the Greek spirit and live it. So this organization really was established for that. We probably, I wouldn't say we didn't succeed. Yeah, we didn't succeed completely, but we've been around for 25 years.
But we have aged well, though.
We have not been able to attract a younger generation, and in many get-togethers, we had brainstorming and trying to say, what can we do to bring in the Greek Americans born here and tell them what this organization is and what it's all about. And may I just also say that for quite some time we were fought pretty harsh by the church because of that attitude.
The school.
Yeah, but that is school.
Το παπαδαριό.
Well, yeah, but the church. I mean, even the Ethniko Kirika had written articles way back then. I mean, articles the way that they were dictated to them. I'm not saying that, but that's what happened. So we have recognized the problem.
Let's talk for a second, because I want to speak on behalf of the Ethniko Kirika, because I know it's a very liberal newspaper, and whenever I think it's the only newspaper whenever has to criticize the church, it's very vocal about doing it. But let's stay between us.
Should I shut it off?
Okay. Yes.